All righty, episode 109 of the Paws Up podcast, going into the world of FIU football, but going a little bit more behind the scenes, Jake. We have a very, very special guest. We have LaTroy Johnson, Assistant AD for Football Operations. LaTroy, how are we doing? Very excited to have you on and talk about what goes on behind the scenes at FIU.
Man, guys, how y'all doing? Appreciate y'all having me, man. Looking
Very,
forward to it.
same here. So you're representing Orangeburg, South Carolina. Where did the love from football come from? Also, did you ever consider playing the sport? Did you have any specific, position in mind at any point when you were growing up?
Yeah. So I played, honestly, not looking at me, but I played. I grew up playing ball like everyone else in our neighborhood. I started in rec ball at probably second grade. Played, all the skill positions growing up. Wide receiver, played a little running back. Arm was never strong enough to get under center, but I was always smart enough to where if something happened, they could throw me under center because I knew the offense. Right, I could get us out of a practice. I never was, fortunate enough to have to get in there in a game situation. And played football all the way through high school. Played basketball up into my 10th grade year in high school, and I just stayed on the football side. Ran track growing up. Started running track probably in the third or fourth grade. Ran track all the way through my 9th grade year of high school, and my track coach wanted me to move to run the 800, and I was like, nah, I'm good on that. I was a 200 and 400 guy in junior Olympics and growing up, and so the 800 was a little bit too much for me. So I started to just focus all on football and played all through high school, all 4 years in high school, and then after that, I decided that 5'5", 100 and 45, 50 pounds wasn't probably going to make a really good college football player. So I took the route of going into the support staff, and I became a student equipment manager in the fall of 2000 at Clemson University. And from there on, I've been around college football since August of 2000, late July, August of 2000. And so that kind of brings me here today.
For sure. You kind of alluded to it. One of your first gigs was being an equipment manager. Just from that perspective, talk about what it was like doing what you did as an EQ manager, and then your thoughts on how this EQ team has dealt with the season so far. I know you're very familiar with Donald Reed and that staff over there.
Pretty big recent reveal.
I got my start in equipment at Clemson under the leadership of Alfonso Smith, who was our head equipment guy at the time. But I couldn't have gotten there without the help of Coach Rick Stockstill, who was the wide receiver coach and recruiting coordinator at Clemson at the time. And he recruited my high school. He recruited our area and had a really, really good history of bringing players from my high school, Orangeburg Wilkerson, to Clemson to play football. But he also brought a couple managers and a few student trainers with him as well. So I just happened to be the next man up in the long line and long history of Orangeburg Wilkerson Bruins that transitioned to Clemson University. And so when I got there as a freshman, I became a student manager. Ironically, I worked with the wide receivers and coached out. And so I did that all 4 years. And when I got out of that, I spent about 4 or 5 months coaching high school football back in South Carolina at a small 1A school called Bethune-Bowman High School. And I coached wide receivers. And solely because of the tutelage that I got while I was at Clemson working with those guys every day. It added validity to me in the room, coaching high school guys. And I had a really good group of guys, a little older group of guys. One of my guys went on to play some FCS football out of that small 1A school. And so it was fortunate for me that I had the opportunity to go and do that fresh out. But shortly after that season was over, I got the opportunity to be the head equipment manager at South Carolina State University in my hometown of Orangeburg. And that propelled me to, the rest of my career. Like it took me, 2.5 years there, and then took me, to one of our conference foes now at Middle Tennessee for Coach Stock. Coach Stock became the head coach there, and I was one of the calls that he made to come join the Blue Raider family with him and head up the equipment room. And I think at the time, probably when I started there in 2007, I was probably one of the youngest head equipment managers in Division I football. I think I was about 24, 25 years old, heading up FBS equipment room, right? And I did that for 5.5 years, man, and I loved every minute of it. You know, was in charge of all of our Nike stuff and did some uniform designs, and was the first one to introduce Blue Raider football to the black uniforms, and all of those type things. So, pretty good run at it, man, and was able to develop some really, really good relationships along the way. And then eventually, when I stepped out of equipment and got into the operation space and started overseeing the equipment room, I started working with Donald when I got to FAM. Donald was our assistant at the time, and then some unforeseen circumstances happened right before the start of the 22 season, and Donald was thrust into becoming our head guy, and I knew he could do it. I think Donald just needed to know he could do it. He didn't, he's a shy guy. He's a kind of behind the scenes guy. Really, really enjoys being, the guy that kind of goes unnoticed. And so it took him a while to realize that he could be the head guy. And so when we got the opportunity to come here to FIU, it was a no-brainer that I would pick up the phone and call Donald and ask him to join us as our equipment guy here. And you can see it, like from the moment he stepped into the room, he's made an immediate impact in that equipment room, and the guys love him. Just his energy that he goes about every day, how he goes about his business, how he's training his staff, and how they're doing things, and with him and the help of our branding team, our marketing team, with the new release yesterday of Vice Vice 3, right? You can tell that he has a really, really good eye for design and knows what he's doing in that space.
We have to backtrack a little to your time at Clemson, where, of course, you met a certain someone, being none other than Willie Simmons. However, I discovered a conflict between you and him from the outset. I need you to formally go over that, and what exactly was the turning point in which you and him became pretty much inseparable?
Well, I would say it wasn't mutual, right? I don't think he really knew I didn't care for him. I think I did a good job of hiding it, given the fact that, like I said, working with the wide receivers, of course, we spent a whole bunch of time in practice with the quarterbacks. And so I couldn't just show my dislike for the dude, and I'm snapping footballs to him and all of that type stuff, right? I didn't want to just give him a high snap or roll one back there so he can get chewed out by the OC. But just the mere fact of watching him go about his business every day, and the relationship that him and Woodrow had, who was the starter and coach was the backup, just seeing them interact with each other and how they were selfless, with one another and each other's number one supporter, when the other one was getting reps in practice or for that matter was in the game. I eventually got out of my quote unquote hate for shotgun. And from that day we became, the best of friends. And here we are now 25 years later. Right. But it started off, he was trying to take my homeboy spot. And we wasn't, when we grew up in Orangeburg, we all stick together in a small town. So when Woodrow became the starter and they recruited and signed and Coach Simmons got there, it was we don't really like you like that, homeboy. But it eventually became a really, really good friendship, and more so than a friendship, it became a brotherhood. And over 25 years now, I can say that he's truly been a big brother to me. You know what I'm saying? Despite contrary belief, we always don't see eye to eye. We go at each other's necks all the time, but that's the mark of true family, right?
Yeah.
You families fight, families argue, families disagree, but at the end of the day, family's not gonna let anybody else come inside of their family and do anything to them, and that's how both of us are. We're gonna go tooth and nails. We don't agree all the time. We have big time battles, regardless of whether it's Biggie versus Tupac, whether it's watermelon versus I don't eat watermelon, he loves it. Whatever the conversation may be, we don't always agree, but at the end of the day, we're going to walk out lockstep because that's what brothers do.
Before you would see him again, you continued as that equipment manager, for all those stops: SC State, CUSA, Enemy, Middle Tennessee, Pine Bluff, Mississippi Valley State. Just talk a bit about maybe some of your favorite memories from those spots and overall what you take away from your time there, pretty much more than anything else.
Oh man, you threw out some names, and I can't take full credit for all of those stops, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really can't. There's a young lady that I lay beside every night that's the reason for a lot of those stops, especially the Mississippi Valley. There was no way, shape, form, or fashion that I was going to find myself in Itta Bena, Mississippi. But because I just got engaged, and my wife was the head basketball coach there, it drew me, to Itta Bena right before we got married, and I became the equipment guy there for Vincent Dancy and his first staff when he took over the head football coach job at Mississippi Valley. But out of all of those stops that I've had along my career, Tennessee State, Pine Bluff, Morgan State, Mississippi Valley, Jackson, I would probably say Valley is probably one of the most memorable, and for a lot of reasons. If you've never been to Itta Bena, Mississippi, it's probably not bigger than our Kirkland Fieldhouse, right? For lack of a better term, but just the people that were there, the time we spent there, the relationships that we developed, both myself and my wife, just it was tremendous. I think about a group of people or family, the Paynes, who was our next door neighbor. They stayed behind us. And Coach Payne was the head men's basketball coach, and my wife was the head women's basketball coach. And to this day, like we are the best of friends. Like we visit each other all the time. We stay with them whenever we're, in the area. Payne is gonna cook all the time. We're gonna play spades all the time. We're gonna do things with them, and that's solely because of the relationships that we developed when we were at Mississippi Valley. And so out of all of the stops over my career, that one sits a little bit towards the top because of the relationships. Middle Tennessee is right up there. And I know, that's a rival for us now. And I promise you, when we go there in October, it's not one person on this staff outside of coach and a few other guys that played there that wants to win that game more than myself. But it was a great place too, because I was working for my mentor, my really, really good friend, father figure, and Coach Stock. It was a reunion of some sort from a college perspective. A lot of our, guys from Clemson was on that staff, and we did some really, really good things, while we were there. We were the first to do a lot, P4 wins. We beat Maryland at Maryland. We beat Maryland at home. We did some good things. We won the first bowl game in school history, all of those things. First 10-win season as an FBS program. There was a lot of things that we did, during that time there that were first, and so those places kind of hold a really, really good, spot in my heart, probably till the good man calls me home.
Did you cross paths with Willie at MTSU or no?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we were there. We were there the entire time. He got hired in March. I got hired in I think like late June. And then we actually spent our first year there together. We lived together. We roomed together and a lot of stories. If only I could tell some of the stories that happened during that time frame, right? But a lot of good times, a lot of good memories. And that was our first time working together and really being back around each other since college. We always kept in touch. We always knew what the other one had going on. I was at South Carolina State. He was GA and at Clemson, all of those type things. And just both of us being stock guys, divine intervention, I guess you can say, that got us back together at that time, at the same time, same place. And we just started manifesting and started talking about, our future. And I knew, when we were there that he wanted to be a head coach. And I knew that he was going to do everything in his power to become one. And eventually he did. And then the rest is history.
So I think a big turning point in your life was taking the assistant AD role at Jackson State. Just was that a position you were gunning for a while? How did it come up, and what did you learn more than anything during your time there?
No, it wasn't. I was an equipment manager through and through. It's funny. I at the time I was at Mississippi Valley, and like I said, my wife was the head basketball coach, and she had just came off of probably her best season there. Had won some non-conference games against some, quote unquote money games that she wasn't supposed to win, and was doing really well. And I had just told her, I said, hey, I'm gonna just ride your coattail, man. I'm gonna be a real supportive husband, and you're gonna get another job, and I'm gonna sit at the house and make sure the clothes wash and food's on the table and all that type stuff. And then Ashley Robinson, who was the athletic director at Prairie View, who hired Coach Simmons as the head coach for his first head coaching job. Right. I knew Ashley through Coach Simmons, and Ashley moved back home. He's from Jackson, Mississippi. He moved back to Jackson and took over the AD job at Jackson State. And shortly after that, he called me and he said, man, I need you to come down the road. I need you to take a ride down 49 and come work for me at Jackson. And I said, man, AD, man, I don't know, man. I'm here in Valley, and my wife's here, And he was like, man, listen, he was like, just come down, talk to me. Let me put some things in front of you, and let's just go from there. And if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. And so I took that hour and a half drive from Itta Bena over to Jackson, and I met with AD Robinson, and he presented me an opportunity to become a assistant AD. He told me that he saw administration in my future. He said, man, I'm going to help you grow and eventually get yourself out of the equipment room and into more administrative duties. I know you can do it. I believe in you. And so once he painted the picture, it was kind of hard for me to say no, right? And he gave me, he bumped my pay up a little bit from what I was making and gave me a new title and a new leash on life. And so I accepted it. And I took over. I was assistant AD for internal operations. And I worked directly under a guy named Dr. Derek Scott, who was the associate AD for internal ops. And Dr. Scott showed me game management. He showed me facilities management. He showed me a lot of things that happened internally alongside of me doing equipment. And then there was a time frame where we hit a wall where our director of football ops at the time, she had to take a step away from football for a couple months. And it was right in the middle of the season. And AD came to me and he was like, hey, man, what do you think about taking on some of the football operations duties? Never had done it, And I was like, AD Rob, man, I know what it should look like, just from seeing people do it, but I never really did it. So he was like, well, it's going to be a team of you guys. And we had a team of people for the rest of that season in 2019 that handled the ops duties, right? And so my responsibility within that was I was in charge of booking all of the outside meals when we traveled. So anytime that we didn't eat in the hotel, it was my responsibility to book it. And once I started getting involved with that and, sitting in meetings and kind of seeing the nuances of travel and hotel conversations and all that, I kind of started to like it. And so once we came out of that season, the head coach at the time, he says, hey, man, when we get back in January, I'm going to name you the DFO. He said, and I just need for you to go find an equipment guy to take over your role because I'm going to slide you into the DFO spot. And I was like, okay, fine. And then all of a sudden we hit COVID, right? And we hit COVID and things go, everyone knows what happens with that. And shortly after we started to transition out of COVID, AD Robinson decided to make a head coaching change. And that's when he brought in Coach Prime. And in the midst of him hiring Coach Prime, he called me back in the office and he said, hey, I'm going to hire Dion and he's probably going to bring his own operations person. So I'm going to move you back into equipment, just for a little bit and see what happens. And I was like, all right, cool. I moved back into equipment. And then he eventually moved me away from football and moved me over to the gym. I moved into the arena and I really, really started to become more of the internal ops person because we was doing some different thing internally with our staff and how we were structured. And they had given us a new facility at at Jackson State. So we needed somebody to run that. So my boss kind of left the gym and went to the new facility. So I had to kind of go into the facility, kind of manage the basketball arena with volleyball and men's and women's basketball. And then I transitioned into baseball and softball. And so I started doing all of that type stuff. And I really kind of checked out from the equipment world, and so in the midst of that, unbeknown to me, Coach and his AD, Courtney Gaucher, who was at FAMU at the time, they were working behind the scenes to create more positions for Coach over at FAM. And the one position that they were creating was a football ops job because they had never really had one. And so Coach was kind of, passing some duties around with his coaching staff as far as travel and, all of the things that went into the ops world. And so when he got the ability to hire, he told Courtney, like, the only person I want to do it is Troy. Like, and let's call him, let's get him here, whatever it takes to get him here, let's get him here. And so I was in between Jackson and Urbana like every other day. It was only like an hour and a half drive. My wife still had like a year or so left on her contract there, and went down to Tallahassee, met with those guys, and it wasn't me. Like I was sold, like, because I really wanted to be back around football, and my guys are there. Like Coach was the head coach, my guy Courtney Gaucher was the AD, my guy Keith McClooney was our deputy AD, and so I would have been in a position to work with people that I was familiar with, right? And so I wanted to kind of tackle that and see what that world looked like, but I had to convince my wife, because that meant me moving to Tallahassee, Florida, and she still being in Mississippi. And that was kind of a hard task to do. But in classic, Willie Simmons form, he's a recruiter. That's one thing that he is outside of a ball coach. He can recruit. And so probably his hardest job recruiting was recruiting my wife to okay me to say, yeah, you know what I'm saying? But ultimately he got it done. I moved to Tallahassee. I became the assistant AD for football operations in my first year in 21. And then in 22, he gave me the chief of staff role as well too. And we've been kind of rolling ever since. Took some time off from working together last year in 24. But the one thing that I tell people all the time that didn't stop our relationships and our conversations. Like, we talked every day while he was at Duke, whether it was something that was going on at Duke that he wanted to bounce off on me, something that was going on in South Carolina State that I wanted to bounce off on him, or just things that we thought, hey, the next time we get together, let's think about doing it like this. Because he saw it or I saw it, whatever. Just didn't think it was going to happen as fast as it did, but always knew at some point in time we'll get back together.
I think now is a good time to sort of go ahead and finally talk about the role of assistant athletic director for football operations. Just talk a bit about what is it exactly you do for those who are unaware to this kind of role, both during the football season as well as the off season.
Well, I wear two hats. So I am officially on paper, I'm the assistant AD for football operations. Internally within the football world, I serve as a chief of staff as well too. So from the operations standpoint, that is, that's pretty much all of the behind the scenes stuff. I handle all travel, myself and my team. I have a really, really good team that sometimes make me feel like I'm not doing anything because they handle so much. So I have an assistant director of football operations, and Kevin Chavez, that I'm pretty sure, a lot of Panther Nation knows him. He's an alum here. He's been here since he walked on campus as a freshman in the equipment room. And then I have Brooke Thomas, who's an operations assistant with us, who was one of my operations interns at Florida A&M. And so when she graduated last spring, we brought her on in a graduate assistant role in operations. And then I also have Katie Willis, who a lot of people in Panther Nation knows as well too. She serves as our director of recruiting, but she also helps with some operational duties as well too. So myself and my team, we handle all of the behind the scenes stuff, from booking hotels, from booking transportation, air and ground transportation, booking flights, for our coaches to go out on the road, recruiting, rental cars, all of the things that they do on a day-to-day basis. I also oversee all of our support areas within football. So strength and conditioning and sports medicine and video and equipment and nutrition and all of the other people that touch our program from a support standpoint. I kind of oversee them and making sure day to day that they're doing everything that they can to help us be the best program in Conference USA and one of the best programs in the nation each and every day. I've run meetings with with that group. I also run a huddle meeting with all of our game day people that touch football, so from Jason McBain and his team, Kevin Kendricks and the compliance team, JR and the facilities team, all of those guys sit in on what I call the huddle every Wednesday, and we go, top to bottom about all things football related on game day. So I oversee all of that type stuff. And then outside of that, I wear the chief of staff hat. And that's really when me and coach can sit down and, work on the nuances of onboarding staff when we're hiring somebody. That's where the oversight of all of our areas within football comes into play. I work really, really close with our HR department within athletics, dealing with all of the things that have to go on there. And I'm kind of sort of the go-between, the liaison with the administration. Our AD Scott Carr and coach, they have a really, really good relationship. So I don't really have to kind of navigate those waters per se. But if there's anything else that comes down the pipe, whether it's from Julie Berg or from Heath Glick or, any of the associate AD, senior associate ADs that's over in Ocean Bank, I'm kind of the go-between, between those guys and the football program.
So job at FIU opens. Willie's, in the mix to get this job. What were those conversations like during that moment? And when you found out that Willie got the job, well, I'm sure he was you were one of his first calls to come join him in at FIU. Just what was that all like during that timeline?
Man, it's funny. We were just talking about this yesterday, me, Kevin, and Brooke. We were sitting here having that conversation, and it was, it was a surreal moment. And I say that, Kevin, because us being together for so long, I've been with him for all of the no's, right? For every time he's interviewed for a job, every time someone has called him, to talk to him about potentially replacing a coach or doing this, that, and the third, I've been right there beside him, for him to get the call and say, nah, we're going to go in a different direction, right? And so, ironically, when he got a call from his agent about FIU and the interest, we had just left. We had just parted ways. I was with him and his family for Thanksgiving, and they played at Wake Forest, and we went, me and my wife, we drove up, went to the game, hung out with them for the weekend, and I had just gotten back to South Carolina, and he called and said, hey, my agent called and said FIU, may have some interest, and, we want to know if I want to interview or whatever. And so I said, yeah. I said, go do it, interview with him. Like, it can't hurt, right? Like, same AD that you interviewed with the last time. President's different, but I mean, just see what it's about, And so we talked about that. And after the interview, the initial interview, it was, how did you do, And he's like, how these things go, man. I think I did okay, but you never know. We'll see what happens. And they said they'll let me know something in a couple of days, whether, I make it to the next round or whether they decide to go in a different direction. And so for us, what we've always done when he gets involved in searches and that sort of thing is we play a really, really good dynamic as far as he goes and figures out who he wants to be on the coaching side of the equation. And then I go and figure out who we want to be on the support staff side of the equation. And so for years and years, we've been doing it. We've been putting it on paper and putting salaries beside it. And before we even knew what salary pool was, right? We writing down how much we want to pay somebody and all these things. And so this last year, we just decided that, hey, we're not going to put it on paper until we have to put it on paper. We're just going to keep a running track in our head and not put it out there for the world or for our viewing pleasure. It's just going to be in my head. It'll be in his head. And that's what we did. after we hung up that day, he said, "Hey, you know what to do." I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "You get yours, I'll get mine, and we'll talk, later on this week." And so did that. I kind of had some people, kind of in my mind of some roles that that we were going to possibly have, and some people that we wanted to target. And then he gets the call that he's going to fly down to Miami and do it in person. And so at that point, when searchers get to that point, when they get to the in person point, you got a chance, right? You got a 1 in 3 shot, or 1 in 4 shot, or 1 in 2 shot of becoming the guy. And so now the conversations on my end start to ramp up a little bit. But the unique part about that was I was still in season at South Carolina State. We were getting ready to head to the Celebration Bowl to play for a national championship. So I'm trying to be the DFO for South Carolina State from 7 in the morning till 7 at night. And then from 7:30 to whenever I close my eyes, I'm looking ahead, just in case we get, we get the nod to take this job at FIU. And so coach flew down and he interviewed on a Friday. And it was kind of nerve-wracking for me because I knew what time he was interviewing. And so I was like, all right, during this time, I won't bother picking up my phone. I won't, see whether he's calling or anything like that. I'll kind of give it some time. And so I gave it to about 6:30, 7 o'clock. And I looked at my phone. I hadn't had any missed calls, any texts. And, I shot him a text like, hey, we good? Like, what's up? And I didn't get a response. And so, like I said, having been there for all of the no's, my mind immediately goes to, man, they just decided to go in a different direction. And he's probably flying back to Durham. Don't really want to talk about it. He'll just call me tomorrow. Right. And so I go on about my day. Me and my wife go to a basketball game at my high school. And we go, watch my high school play basketball, a little local rival game. It's packed in there. And the whole time my phone buzz, every time my phone buzz at the game, I grab it quick and, see what it is. And unbeknown to me, he wasn't calling. Right. And so we go out that night. Me and my wife go out, and some of my family, we go out and we have a good time. We have a couple drinks and, just kind of messing around. And so while we're out, I get a text message from a friend of ours that's a FIU alum. She's a prominent figure here in the South Florida community and all of that type stuff. So she texts me, and I open up my text message, and it's a picture of Will Smith from Bad Boys. And the caption says, "Welcome to Miami." Right.
Oh my God.
And so I text her back. I was like, hey, man, don't play with me, man. Like, what you know? And she was like, nah, I'm joking. Like, I don't know anything. She's like, I was just trying to see whether you heard anything. I was like, no, I haven't. Went home, went to sleep. And then early Saturday morning, I just woke up, good Lord, opened my eyes and rolled over. I went to the bathroom and came back to the bed, and I checked my phone. And I had a text message from Ayo Belly Randolph, who is now one of our defensive analysts. And Ayo was at Charlotte at the time. And Ayo's from here. He's from Miami Gardens, and he worked with us at FAMU. So there was always a relationship there. And so Ayo texted me and said, hey, man, what's up? Like, what's going on? So I was like, nothing, man. I'm in the bed. Like, what are you talking about? He was like, no, man, what's going on? Like, are we going to Miami? Like, what's up? And so I said, I don't know. I said, I hadn't talked to coach. I know he interviewed yesterday. I don't know what's up. And then probably 30, 45 minutes later, I get a group FaceTime call from a group of friends of ours from Clemson. And it's about 5 of them on the call. And I look at my phone and I see his name within the name of people. And so I hit join and I joined the FaceTime call. And as soon as I get on the call, coach is on the call. He's smiling. There's palm trees in the back. He has on a blue blazer, and the girls are all screaming, "Congratulations, congratulations!" And so I'm like, "Yo, man, what's up?" And he was like, "Yeah, bro, I'm gonna call you in a minute. I'm about to get in the car with the AD." And at that time, I knew it was what it was. And so I went to Twitter and just started looking at tweets and trying to confirm what he had already confirmed for me in my mind, because now it's like, okay, it's just got real. You know what I'm saying? Like in 7 days, I'm gonna be playing for a national championship, but one of my best friends just became the head coach, and now he's where he wanted to be for a long period of time. You know what I'm saying? And so that next week and a half was crazy. I'm in Atlanta for the Cricket Celebration Bowl with South Carolina State, and I'm trying to be locked into that as much as I can. Trying to not answer questions from people. Hey, are you going to Miami? Hey, when you leaving for Miami? Is this your last game? All of that type stuff. And so it was a whirlwind, man. It really was, but it was exciting. I wouldn't change it for the world. I'll do it all over again. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, that was an unbelievable story just to get here. And now we have a season to go. But there's a lot of stuff going on this week on campus. Yeah. So let's take a quick detour and go around FIU athletics here. Who to watch for the 305. Let's get right into it. And of course, we got to start off with football. Who's getting ready for Vice Night? It's the Kennesaw State Owls coming to Pitbull Stadium. You can catch the Panthers rocking their brand new Vice jerseys, Volume 3, if you will. That's going to be on Tuesday, October the 21st, 7 o'clock. If you can't make it, nationally televised on ESPN2. So definitely check that out. Men's soccer and women's soccer, for that matter, are wrapping up their regular seasons, getting ready for conference championships. Men's soccer is going to be on the road at Tulsa, taking on the Golden Hurricane. That's a conference matchup, 8 o'clock, Saturday, October the 18th at 8 p.m. And they will then head back to Leyva Family Field for senior night against Charlotte, Friday, October the 24th at 7 o'clock. Both of those matches can be seen over on ESPN+. And then likewise, women's soccer is wrapping up their season at home for 2 straight matches at Leyva Family Field before it's the CUSA tournament. They're going to take on Louisiana Tech on Sunday, October the 29th at 1 o'clock. That's on ESPN+. Missouri State the following Sunday, the 26th, also on ESPN+. And last but not least, FIU football is not the only team doing a Vice Night. Indoor volleyball is doing one against Delaware on Friday, October the 17th at 6 o'clock over at the Ocean Bank Convocation Center. They'll then take on Delaware again the day after at 1 p.m., Saturday, October the 18th. Both of those matches can be seen on ESPN Plus as well. So that was a brief look around FIU athletics. Now, LaTroy, you're responsible for a lot of things, but something I'm really interested in and curious about is what goes into getting a whole football team and staff ready to travel on the road. I mean, when does the process start? How difficult really is it to make sure everything goes smoothly? You can maybe use the Yukon trip as an example and how you're gearing up for this Western Kentucky trip, because this was pre-recorded back on October the 10th.
Oh man, it's a collaborative effort. I really can't take full responsibility for it. Like I said earlier, I have a really, really good team. And the one thing that I can contribute to working at FCS institutions and merely working, at HBCUs is you have to utilize the people around you to get things done in a way that you want to get it done, especially when you're a one-man band, like some of us, majority of us are in the ops world, at the SCS level, especially at the HBCU level. And so one thing I've learned in my years of being a DFO, say at Florida A&M and at South Carolina State, that you're only as good as the people around you, right? And so that's how I get it done. I utilize every blade of grass, for lack of a better term, right, of people that I can to help ensure that we have a smooth travel season. So whether it's using our equipment, our assistant equipment manager, Noah, to handle the ID book when we get ready to fly. So all of our guys, just in case they've lost their IDs or misplaced it or whatever, we have a copy of their ID in a 3-ring binder that we can show to the TSA agent at the airport to get them through and get them into the security line, whether that's utilizing Isa Rosa, who is our academic, in charge of academics here. She's assistant associate AD, one of those for academic services, whether it's using her to stand in the middle of the plane and remind people of where their seats are, right? She does an outstanding job on Thursdays and Fridays and Saturdays and Wednesdays, whatever day it is we're traveling with this crazy Conference USA schedule. She does a really, really good job of helping us do whatever it is that we need to get it done. So I utilize Brooke, who I mentioned before. Brooke handles all of our outside meals. So the food for the plane, Brooke orders that and make sure that we have enough for everyone on the plane to get food. So I know Kevin is kind of looking forward to that as he gets ready to travel with us to Western Kentucky. But
Really
just
excited.
utilizing her to make sure that we got food ordered, right? Utilizing our nutrition staff to make sure that that food that has been ordered get passed out, and we got drinks to be passed out, and all of those different people within our program that help us in different capacities. When it comes to travel, it makes travel that much easier for us, right? We utilize our relationship with Academy. Academy is, the preferred bus company for FIU athletics and for that matter, for FIU as a whole. But the one thing that I started doing when I was at FAMU was I utilize our bus company locally to find us bus companies out of town, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what they do for a living. They work in the transportation industry. So why not use them and let them send us to people that they trust in the industry, right? And so instead of me and my team getting on the internet and getting on, checking reviews and all of that, calling our colleagues around the country, hey, what bus company do you use when you go to Western Kentucky? Or what bus company do you use in State College, Pennsylvania, right? I just ask Academy, hey, who is in your network, right, that you trust, that has really, really good buses within their fleet, who, customer service is great, all of that. And then you refer us to those people, and then we'll utilize those services. So just different things like that help us ensure that travel goes smooth, right? One of the biggest parts of that we try to do in the off season, once we get our schedule, is we try to do a site visit at every place that we're going to stay, right? So myself and Kevin Chavez, we go and we take site visits and we look at all of the ins and outs of the hotels. We kind of map out the time from the hotel to the stadium, and from the stadium to the airport, and the airport back to the hotel. Like, what does it look like? How can we make this as convenient and as stress-free for our players and our coaches as we possibly can? Because we're all creatures of habit. And if we can keep our routine as close to the same everywhere we go, right, regardless of what city, what state, if we can make it look the same every time, then our guys, that's one less thing they have to think about. And so it makes travel, it makes it flow seamlessly, but it's a group effort. And I would be wrong on all levels if I was to just sit here and say, yeah, I do it all. I sit here and I crank out all the itineraries and the travel list and all that. No, I don't. I don't. So for anybody that's looking at this and says, man, he has a really, really cool job and he gets to do all of these things. No, I just get to oversee it. And all that means is when it goes wrong, then everyone comes looking at me because I'm in charge of it. But when it goes right, I make sure that I give credit where credit is due. And I have a really, really good team of people around me that help ensure that it gets done the right way.
So I guess on that note, just talk about the process to make sure game day is as smooth as possible, here at Pitbull Stadium, but as well as on the road. What does that look like on game day for you and your staff specifically?
Yeah. So our game day from an operations standpoint starts at 7:30 in the morning, right? But our game day is over at 4:00, right? 4:15. Let's say we play a 6:00 game, right? If we play a 6:00 game in Pitbull Stadium, from an operation standpoint, our game day starts at 7:30 when we have wake up calls at the hotel, and our game day is over probably about 3:55. And you may ask why 3:55? Because at that point, Panther Walk is over. Everyone is in the locker room, right? And from that point on, it's about playing football. And we can't control that part, right? But from 7:30 to 3:55, it's on us. It's on us to make sure that when we say breakfast is at 8:15, that the food is out, it's ready to go, the rooms are set, all is right, right? When we say we're going to leave the hotel over in Dayland to make it to Panther Walk, that the buses are there on time, the police escort is there on time. Everything is lockstep, ready to go. And so we don't typically breathe until we get to the stadium and Panther Walk is over. Now, being in South Florida and being here during these months, you really don't breathe until you get the ball kicked off, because you have all these weather delays and all this other type stuff that plays into it, right? And so those first 2 games added some anxiety, for lack of a better term, from an operation standpoint, because you don't know when it's going to kick off, right? You can assume and you can kind of think about what's going to happen, but until JR and his team gives us the thumbs up that, hey, we can go play football, then that's when we take a breath. And if you see me during a game, you see I very rarely move. I stand on the 20-yard line. That's the I'm trying to get my bearings right for Pitbull Stadium. That's the south end of the stadium, closest to the locker room. I'm standing about the 20-yard line, and I'm just down there chilling. I'm rooting the guys on. I'm cheering the guys on. The only time I move is when we score a touchdown. We score a touchdown, I go to the Powerade cart in the middle of the sideline. I get a couple Gatorade and I give it to coach, because he's just superstitious like that, right? But if otherwise, you'll see me right towards the 20. You know, I'm waiting on DJ M. Dot to play something that I can kind of jig a little bit, and you know, I'll dance a little bit on that end, or wait on the band to play Mr. Ice Cream Man, or you know what I'm saying, something like that. I may chest bump a guy if he make a big play coming off the field, but at that point, our game day is over. You know, our game day is over. We're just trying to get everybody to that point. And so, again, that part is a team effort as well. JR and his team, they do a really, really good job of ensuring that things are running smooth. We're in a game day chat where there's a bunch of us in a group message together, where we update everyone as to what's going on, right? I'm updating them. Hey, we're leaving the hotel. Hey, we're turning on the campus. You know what I'm saying? That sort of thing. So it keeps the communication going. And that's what I like about this place. Like, we communicate really, really well. Regardless of what's going on, you're always in the know. You're always in the loop of what's happening. So as the point person for football, you know, as the go-between, the point person from administration standpoint, there's never a moment where I don't really know, you know, what's happening. And that's the good thing about this place and about the people that's here, is that everyone wants to ensure that game day is as smooth and as efficient as possible. And you know, we've had 3 home games, and all 3 of them have been really, really smooth.
It's been a super fun show, LaTroy, but I think it's time to get into some fun rapid fire questions here to start to close up shop. Who is the funniest member of the FIU football staff?
Benedict Hippolyte, hands down.
All right. Favorite Willie Simmons story? It's not rapid fire, but I'm curious.
Favorite Willie Simmons story? Ooh, that's a good one. That should have been the last question.
You and Willie.
Wow, I'm trying to think. One that's podcast worthy that I can actually tell on a podcast. You got me there. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think, man.
Let Jake. We'll go to Jake so he could ask.
Yeah. Let's come back to that. Let's come back to that
for sure.
Where's the go-to spot on campus to grab a bite to eat?
Go-to spot on campus to grab a bite to eat. Ironically, the go-to spot is not on campus. The go-to spot is across the street at Publix to get a cafe con leche.
There we go.
Either in the morning, in the afternoon, or maybe both. Right. That's kind of like our go-to spot.
All right, I like it. Thoughts on the new Vice uniforms?
Absolutely love them. Absolutely love them. They did a really, really, really great job. And I was kind of involved in it early on. You know, Donald would run some things by me. Hey, what you think about this? What you think about that? But ultimately, I really love it. And the crazy part about it, I think for me, the part that I'm going to like the most, and I don't know whether a lot of people paid attention to this part in the release video last night, but the touch on the face mask.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's dope.
Yes.
I was told that was a Donald Reed.
That was all
addition.
Donald Reed. All Donald Reed. Yes. That, to me, that's what's going to make it all pop. And with it being in October, all of that is great play on timing, colors, all of that. Shout out to Donald Reed for that. D. Reed did his thing with that one.
And then last one, weekday CUSA. Is it a yay or a nay? I'm
kind of torn right now. I'm in the middle.
Okay.
I'm in the middle. Reason being is it's twofold. So one, from an operational standpoint, it makes it a tad bit difficult because the hotel scene is usually being used during the week for conferences, especially the full service hotels that we have to stay, right, with meeting rooms and all that type stuff. If they're in a city where there's a lot of industries and a lot of different, businesses and that sort of thing, they're probably going to be used up. They're going to be booked because of work conferences and all that type stuff. So that makes it a little difficult, especially trying to find lodging, right? On the flip side of that, it gives you, some extra days in there to prepare, right? It gives you typically more Fridays to kind of get the coaches out on the road to see some high school games locally, in the area. But then it gives you a Saturday to be able to sit back and watch some game day and Herb Street and the boys on game day and Coach Saban and, all of those guys. Now you got to practice, right? You got to practice, but you get a time to just really chill and watch college football and all of the pageantry that goes into it on a Saturday. So I'm a little torn. But I think I'm leaning towards liking it versus not liking it.
A lot of people the first year don't like it, but then after it's just like, all right, you're on national TV, it's good exposure. It's tough with the scheduling, but once you get used to it, like it's fun. It's only 3 games too, and the part that does suck is 2 on the road this year for FIU compared to last year. But when the home game's Vice night with the New Jerseys, can't beat that.
Yeah. All right, Kel, so I'm gonna go back to yours, and then
Okay.
Whatever you guys want. Unless Jake got another one. You got another one, Jake?
No, I really want to hear this.
All right, so I will say one is coach is we have a lot of mutual friends, right? We got a lot of mutual friends, and of course over 20, 25 years of knowing each other and friendship, we will, right? But so we have a lot of things in common as well too, and we do a lot of things together. We like a lot of things. So one of them is our love for competing, right? And one way that we compete together is on the spades table, right? We love playing spades, and so we are only partners. I gotta say this because if I don't, I'll get killed. We're only partners when my wife is not around. All right. If my wife's around, then I got to be partners with my wife. And so we were in training camp in 23, I think it was. I think it was a 23 training camp in Tallahassee at FAMU. And the guys, we walked in to dinner one night, and the guys had some cards, and they just in there, they playing cards, and they doing different magic tricks, and they doing all types of stuff with cards. And somebody said, man, let's play some spades real quick. Now, mind you, we're at dinner, and you only got a short window of time for dinner before we have to go back for meetings and all that type of stuff. And so I walked by the table. I said, man, y'all don't know how to play no spades. And they're like, man, coach, stop playing, man. We'll beat you and whoever you get as your partner. We'll crush y'all. And so I said, my partner right there. So I pointed to coach. They're like, of course you would say that. Y'all do everything together. Y'all can't beat us. So coach says, all right, cool. Here's the deal. Y'all get the best 2 people y'all got. And we'll cancel meetings for the rest of the night. Y'all can go home. put it out there in front of the whole team. Grab the best two spades players that y'all have on this team, and if y'all can beat me and T-Roy tonight, we'll cancel meetings. Y'all can go home, right? Needless to say, that they had to stay in meetings till like 9:30 because nobody could do it. And they were rapid firing at us. They were throwing guys at us left and right, and they couldn't do it. And so we carried that over to here, right? And so Cheney and Trey Wilhoit, who played for us at FAM, they came in and they telling the guys, hey man, them boys serious on the spades table, man. Y'all might not want to get it. So everybody's chirping. Yeah. So we do this thing called Fun Friday on Fridays where we just let the boys relax when we get to the hotel. They play video games. We have cards and all that type of stuff. We playing music. And so the first week before the Bethune-Cookman game, two of our staff members, they said, hey, we're going to take it. We're going to take the mantle and we're going to wear it. So Coach Crawford and Coach Gilstrap decided to sit down and play me and Coach in spades. Needless to say, every Friday since then, Coach Strap has been somewhere on the other side of the room playing video games, and Coach Crawford has been playing Connect Four with Kiwan because they haven't decided to come back to the table yet, right? The following week, they passed the mantra to Coach Barasa and Coach Gator, and same thing happened to them. So there you have it. Like, you want spades, you want some smoke, come find us. We ain't hard to find. Like Coach Prime said, we ain't hard to find. We right here. So if you want the smoke, right? And I'm saying it on the Paws Up podcast. All Panther Nation, Panthers, old, young, middle age, it don't matter. If you think you can play spades and you want the smoke, me and Coach ain't hard to find. You can come get some whenever you want.
We'll clip this and we'll post it on Twitter.
Okay, hell yeah.
Come get it.
LaTroy, you've been awesome. And I got one more question for you, though you kind of already partially answered it by announcing that to the FIU world. But if you have anything you'd like to say to the fans, to FIU, to anybody in particular, the floor is now yours.
Here's the deal, Panther Nation. I am super, super happy to be a part of you guys' family. You've welcomed me since the day I walked on campus with open arms, and I truly appreciate it. The one thing that I can ask of all of you is Tuesday night for Vice Night against Kennesaw State. We need all of you in the place. We need Pitbull Stadium to be rocking like it has never rocked before. We need all of your energy, all the excitement. Help come cheer your Panthers to victory as we face the Owls from Kennesaw, Georgia. We need all of you here. We need your continued support. We need you, if you haven't, to buy tickets. We need you to support our NIL collectives, all of the things that we're doing to help build this program in the right way. We need you guys here. We need your financial contributions. We need your support. We need you in the place. Be here. Find us. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram. And if anybody wants some smoke on the spades table, me and Coach are always willing to give it to you. Right?
Yes.
Pause.
There we go, baby. All righty, we'll wrap it up there. LaTroy, thank you so much for taking the time. This was awesome. From
Appreciate
Jake,
you guys.
myself, and LaTroy, we'll see you guys all
Pack
on
the
the next one.
cage.
And pack the cage. And as always, pause up, baby. Let's go.
Paws up.